Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarastvo Andhakaro Vai Rukarastvo Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayane Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maritaha Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramo Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. So as you know, this morning Saturday classes are really two classes in one. I hadn't planned it this way when I was thinking about it. I was just thinking we're going to start with meditation before the class. But then I ran across this very beautiful section of the analysis of Nitidhasanam given in the Aparoksha Anubhuti with the commentary of Swami Akhandananda ji. So when I was reading that book, I was struck by how informative his analysis of Nitidhasanam is, which I have not seen it someplace else. So I thought that we would actually visit that area in a very structured manner and take several weeks to go through that. And as a prelude to meditation, to prelude to Nitidhasanam. So this is both the logic of Nitidhasanam as well as the practice of Nitidhasanam that constitutes the first half hour of the Saturday morning class. So this is how I think it's turning out to be. So what we saw, and just to reiterate, the yoga system, Patanjali's yoga and just the yoga in general, is a very, very, very structured way to calm your mind down and ultimately to withdraw all the changes in your mind and just be meditating without any form, ultimately going to samadhi. So as you know, there's what is called the Ashtanga Yoga, which is 8 steps to achieving it very systematically. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyanam and Samadhi. So these 8 limbs or steps of yoga are very well known, and we should also see that quite well. But then the Vedantic Nitidhasanam is more than that. And Nitidhasanam in this analysis by Aparoksha Anubhuti consists of 15 steps, not just 8 steps. Number one. Number two, it conforms to the prakriya of Vedanta. Prakriya means the methodology. So Vedanta goes more than yoga, it's more than Sankhya, as you know. It is considered to be the ultimate. The Vedantic knowledge is considered to be the ultimate. So, Brahma Jnanam Brahma Eva Bhavati. So once you understand that, then you are done. You are free while living. This is the Vedantic vision. And so the Nididhasanam is to conform to that Vedantic vision. So this analysis is, I think, very, very instructional, very useful, very revealing, very insightful. So I think we will visit it systematically. So to start off, the Nididhasanam consists of 15 steps, 15 angas, and I think what I will do is in one of the files, I would actually write it out so you can actually see it very well, and I will attach it to the web page. When you go to the web page for looking for these classes, as you know, we have done this before. You actually have a text file that there'll be a link to a text file that you can look at. So I will do that so you will know that. But anyway, for the time being, let us just visit all the 15 steps. So the first step is the name of the first step is the same name for the yoga, which is Yama. So Yama means discipline. Is what it means. And now let us complete the yogic view of what Yama is. So this is how we are going to proceed. We are first going to look at the yogic view, the yoga view, which is still very useful for us. It's not as though it is wrong. No, not at all. I would say it is somewhat incomplete. Once you have the vision of the Shastra, then the same steps become more complete. That's all, I think, is the best way to look at it. So anyway, Yama. So what we saw last week on Yama was that it consists of, so there are some limbs of Yama. So each one of the 8 limbs or the 8 steps have sub-steps. So the Yama in the yogic system has Satyam, which we went through with some depth last week. Satyam. Second one is Ahimsa. The third one is Aparigraha. The fourth one is Asteya. And the fifth one is Brahmacharyam. So let's briefly visit each one of them. I think Satya we have already done, that it means that it is a conduct based on truth. So this is good to see that, really speaking, our transactions, our behavior, all of that has a possibility of being based on truth. And truth meaning something which we all agree is what we want. Like, for example, as we were discussing last week, we expect others to say something which is not a lie, which is truthful. So we expect truthfulness in speech. We expect truthfulness in conduct and behavior, because there is a possibility of not being truthful. And so the satya means the discipline of your own conduct in all aspects of your transactions, including thought, including speech, and including your actions. So there should be a samanvaya. There should be a consistency, and a very natural one. It's very possible that as a child grows up, because there seems to be some advantage in not speaking truth. You can just cut corners and say, I think nobody will notice it, and so on. So there is some advantages, and so there could be a tendency of not speaking truth. But in the final analysis, you should see that unless you adhere to truth, you cannot really make long-term progress, and especially not from a Vedantic standpoint. You might be able to get away with it in worldly transactions, but ultimately what it means is, this is the thing that we students should realize, is that our own estimate of ourself is the most important. What the world thinks of us is important, but the most important one is what I think about myself. And not being truthful means that I don't have a good opinion about myself. That means that I am able to accept a non-truthful behavior for the time being. It's like ignoring your conscience. Conscience is the truth. And so, most important thing to see is that if I have to be peaceful, I have to be peaceful within myself, with me. So this is truth. Okay. Then the second one, let's go on. I think we have lots to cover in the next 17 minutes. Second one is Ahimsa. So Ahimsa means not himsa, ahimsa, not hurting anyone. And so this is generally very well accepted by people who are students and so on. There is nothing big about that, except that it has subtle aspects which one has to be careful about. The very obvious effects of not hurting somebody physically is very obvious, but not hurting someone in thought is also something that we should be aware of. How do we hurt somebody by thought? That you criticize someone. You put somebody down either through thought or through speech. And so what that means is that your estimation of yourself is relative to somebody else's conduct. I am better than that person. How can that person do this? That person doesn't know how to do this. So this is a kind of a criticism which prompts an estimation of yourself which is false, because you think you are better than somebody else. And it may be that you are better than somebody else. It's not as though it is completely false. But being better or being worse and so on, these are all relative things, and ultimately we have to give up all of that anyway. Relative to who you are as the Atma, everything is inferior. Even your own estimation of yourself as being better than somebody else is still inferior to yourself as the Atma. So if you cling on to that as the very basis of your behavior, then you are not really going on the highway to understanding yourself. You're resting on a false platform for the time being. This is where the Ahimsa has subtle meanings, and it just means that so this is the mental aspect. Then in terms of relationships and in terms of your behavior, Ahimsa means you respect people's sentiments. You are aware of, am I saying the right thing? Some of the acharyas say that before you are ready to say something, think about it twice. And then we will see all this will come out in different ways, but leaving aside ahimsa at this point means you're not, you're careful about making sure you don't hurt anybody. In fact, when a person takes sannyasa, this is one of the main things you are taught to be very careful about. A sannyasi, a Swami, has to be absolutely clear about not hurting anyone. Okay, so anyway, that's number 2. Then the third one is aparigraha. Aparigraha means not living with assets that you don't need. Accumulating beyond the needs of your life is aparigraha. And you know, this is a form of truthfulness, because all of us want to go through the life with security, with enough assets that we can conduct our life well. All of that is necessary. But is some kind of a greed where you have a value for accumulating assets, including, I would say, greed for knowledge of things. You know, supposing you learnt a second language, and one of my regrets, quite frankly, is, you know, I came to the US in 1964, long time ago, and at that time, really there was not much of a need for learning Spanish, because everybody that you would transact with, including household help, gardeners, they were all English-speaking people. Then slowly, the Spanish influence of, certainly in the blue collar, we grew up to a point where I really feel I made a mistake not to learn Spanish. And so learning a new language, a vidya of a new language is good if you need it. But if you just want to become a scholar, that you want to learn French, and you want to learn German, and you know Russian, and this, that, or the other, just for vidya, also means that you are accumulating things that are not necessary. Anyway, so aparigraha. Then the next one is asteya. Asteya means stealing, not lack of stealing. Steya means stealing. Asteya means lack of stealing. Stealing means, you don't normally we don't steal, but again we have to look at the subtle aspects of it. If you cut into a line, this happens in Indian get-togethers all the time. You must be smiling when you hear this. So then food is now served, immediately a line forms, and then you find that your friend is actually at the front of the line, and you are, by the time you got to the line, you are at the way back there, and you're hungry, and that means you have to stand there for another 5 minutes before you get food. And so what you do is, or it's the other way around, somebody calls you and say, "Hi, come. And so you just basically tell somebody, "Excuse me, is it okay?" You can say that, but that doesn't mean that you should do it. So you cut through, the other fellow is also standing there for a while. This is a subtle form of stealing. And we need to be very careful about that. To have a conduct where everything is according to what you expect. If you see this happening, don't you feel that why does that person cut into the line? Anyway, asteya. Then the last one is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya really means sexual appropriateness. Appropriate use of sex. And this is a huge topic, and I won't go into all the details of it, but I think it's a good way to describe it, that your conduct, sexual conduct in life can be inappropriate or it can be appropriate. The appropriateness is very necessary because that is how Ishvara has made. It's a very important part of life. Inappropriateness is not necessary. And so this is what is called brahmacharya. So, and the appropriateness depends on your station. Are you a single? Are you married? Your age, etc. All of that. And so the appropriateness of sexual conduct, I think, is a great definition of brahmacharya. All right. So with that, our yogic view of Yama is now complete. Okay. Now let us go into the Nitidhasanam view of Yama. Okay. And for just for reference, this is given in verse number 104 of Aparoksha Anubhuti. Okay. So the Nitidhasanam view of Yama means you should know what the Shastra is asking you to view, to have that view about world and yourself. So this is the normal understanding of what is necessary. In other words, the knowledge of yourself as you are, the knowledge of the world, which is that there is only one entity in the whole world which masquerades as you, the jiva, and the world as different from you. There is only one person which is called Brahman. And there is only Brahman. There is no other thing. The other things look different. It's just like our example of a dream, that in the dream you yourself assume a very different form, and you look at the dream world as a different form, both of them are nothing but you alone. Both of them is nothing but your own consciousness, your own Atma. Similarly, if you expand that to all the three phases of our life, not just the dream, but also the waking and so on, ultimately there is only one Brahman. That looks like it is a jiva, it looks like it is the world, it looks like it has a time, a place and so on, but it's only one thing. So this is the view that one should have and one does have if you have been studying Vedanta for a while. So now this explains the Nitidhasanam of Yama. Right? The yogic view of Yama we've already seen. What is the Nitidhasanam view of Yama? The Nitidhasik, if we can coin that word, according to the Nitidhasanam, Yama means the discipline to follow what is being shown to you, which is the truth. That everything is Brahman alone. What is you is also Brahman. What is considered to be inside of you is also Brahman. And what is considered outside of you is also Brahman. I mean, we have taken so many examples on this, we can bring it to this point, that if you are a room space and your identity is that of, I am a conscious room space person. So the space is consciousness, Chidakasha. So the space has consciousness. So the consciousness, which is pure consciousness of space, can manifest itself in various ways. So if there is an upadhi of a room, then it is possible that somebody may identify wrongly with the room spaceness of consciousness, not just pure consciousness. So when that happens, then you become affected by that identity because you feel that I am only this much. It's very stuffy in here, and so all the gunas of limitations also come up. Gunas of limitations mean that not only the substance itself, the substance meaning the walls of the room, but the very qualities of this substance also become very effective. It's smoky in here. I'm affected by the smoke. Then the outside means that the other rooms there is no smoke. They are very lucky. Why do I have smoke? Why am I so stuffy? Maybe I am a dark room. I have darkness in my room. The other rooms are well lighted. Why don't I have a skylight in my room? All these kinds of issues. So this person is told, wait a second, it's okay for you to play this role, it is okay, but are you really taking it that seriously? So the person says, what do you mean? Should I not take myself this seriously? Don't you see that there are differences between us? This will come in the Bhagavad Gita also and very shortly. So then the person is told, no, outside is also space, inside is also space, it is nothing but space itself. And so you don't take that yourself that seriously, because there's only one space, inside, outside. So then, Yama means, now in this context, and I think I'm running out of time, so if you don't, I hope this is okay that I can just stop. So there is a continuity of these classes from 8 to 8:30. And so perhaps even at some point in time we can separate them into a separate video that can be done. But anyway, I won't complete this. There's more to be told, but let me at least introduce it to you, which is that Yama means a discipline of going back to understanding what is being told to us, that there is no difference between outside and inside. My mind is not yet disciplined. It doesn't have the focus, it doesn't have the habit yet. To develop that habit, to have that discipline, is called Yama. So you can see that this is beyond yoga. This is consistent with the vision of Vedanta. So in order to have the Nitidhasana view, you must have an introduction to Vedanta. And once you have the introduction to Vedanta, then the value of each one of these angas, steps, becomes something different, consistent with the Vedantic view. So that's the meaning of the word Yama. So we will continue with that. There is more to be said about Yama before we go on to the next one. So we will continue next week. So I will close that part of the class. Right. All right, so now we go back to our main class, which is to study the Bhagavad Gita through the commentary and through the eyes of Swami Shankarananda. And once again, to reiterate, what really attracted my attention and made me decide to spend some time teaching this was the view of Swami Shankaradanda. Very similar to, by the way, what we are doing in the Nitidhasanam, is just like in Nitidhasanam, you revisit the steps of yoga with a view of understanding the truth about yourself as revealed by the Shastra. Just like we did that there, here also it is a very similar thing. That the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, which you are very familiar with, will be viewed from the standpoint of a knowledgeable person who knows Vedanta. So this is why I say, really it is not a, this is true that if I call you all a jnani, which is true, this is consistent with what the acharyas say, that a jnani is a person who knows what it is all about, but hasn't had the nishtha, the brahmanishtatvam is not there. But otherwise you are a jnani. So Swami Shankaradanda's view of Bhagavad Gita is by discussing the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita from the standpoint of a jnani. As we will see that even now as we proceed. We've already seen that in the last couple of classes, and we will continue with that. So what we saw was the verse 11, which is the start of the teaching of Vedanta in Bhagavad Gita, and starts with an admonition, a hint of impatience, very deliberate impatience in the voice of the teacher, Sri Krishna, Ishvara himself, saying, what are you talking about? It is okay for, like for example, supposing a child behaves in a manner which is not appropriate, inappropriate manner. Supposing a child conducts something, you forgive the child because he doesn't know. He's still a child. But suppose the inappropriate behavior is being done by an adult with some justification, saying, this is the way it should, this is what I'm going to do. I think that what I'm doing is not wrong. You may be doing wrong, but you think you're not doing wrong with some justification. When that happens, some admonition is necessary. So for teaching a child, admonition is not necessary. You have to sympathize with the child that you don't know. It's okay. Here, baby, this is the way it should be done. But supposing you are confronted with a so-called adult who's acting like a child, there some admonition is necessary. Admonition is necessary. So this is provided by verse number 11 in saying, Ashocyan tvam ashocustvam pragyavadam chu bhashase. Listen, you are doing something which is wrong. And furthermore, to make it worse, you're justifying this is very wisdom. This is wisdom. This is the way it should be. And so on and so forth. Stop it. This is not the way you should really be thinking about. So a hint of, I wouldn't say anger, but a hint of impatience and waking up, a shock treatment, sort of like that, was the verse 11. Okay? Now let us go to verse number 12. All right? So here he says, as you know, Natve vaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha na chaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param natu eva aham jatu, if you want to break the sandhi. Natu eva aham jatu. I was never, there was never a time when I was not there. Natu eva aham jatu. Na asam natvam neme janadipaha. And not only was there no time when I was not there, there will be no time when I will not be there. In other words, double negatives. I have always been there and I will always be there. And by the way, you also is the same way. It's not just me. You also have always been there. And you will also always be there. And not only you and me, but all these other people that you see, all these kings, Janadipaha, Janasya Adipaha, the one who are the leaders of the people, everyone in fact, they are the same way. They have always been there and they will always continue to be there. So, this is the situation. This is what is going on. So now with verse number 12, Sri Krishna, who had admonished Arjuna in verse number 11, gives the logic of why Arjuna is wrong. You have to support it. You can say this is what you're thinking about is not proper. And then you just don't say anything after that. How effective will that be? In order to make somebody's mind change, you have to give the logic for it. This is the logic. Okay? So, this is what is being said. So, what it is being said is that Arjuna needs to understand what is called lakshyartha of you, not vachyartha of you. So I'm using those words deliberately because they, first of all, they appear in the commentary, but also to make sure that when you hear the word lakshyartha and vachyartha, you are clear about what it means, and you should be by now. But I'll repeat it, for a while until it becomes habit. So again, our example that we saw in the Nitidhasanam example, that if you have a room space, a person who is identified with a room, then the vachyartha means the personality. Because the room space has a certain personality, it has certain shape, it has certain propensity of being, should there be a window to let the light in, should there be a door to let all the smokiness go outside, all of those kinds of things. So it has a certain personality. So when somebody says, by the way, you, the question is, where does the finger point to? If the finger is pointing out to the personality, it's called vachyartha. Vachyartha means the direct, something that you can see right in front of your eyes. You can see the pollution. You can see the form. So this is called vachyartha. But if the finger says you are the total space. So look at this. If somebody is explaining to the room space, you meaning vachyartha. You means that I am talking to you, the personality who is listening to me. Then you say, you room space is actually unlimited space. The unlimited space aspect of that is the lakshyartha. What is indicated? Why do we need to have lakshyartha versus vachyartha? Because the room space cannot see the total space in the same manner that the room space can see itself as the room space. Because it can see the pollution, it can see the darkness in the room, the enclosure, the size, the smells. In the last few days in our house, I don't know I think we've had more than one rat that died. And this is the funny part, because we have actually been using some kind of an outside. We have a lot of rat activity. It's just bothersome. They get into the attic and all kinds of things. So you have to control it some way or the other. I'm not out to kill them, but I have to protect my living space. So we have to put some outside traps, some poison, and all that has been going on for a number of days. So if you see that, then these rats, they sometimes eat the poison and they come and die inside of your own house. So in the last few days, we've had more than one rat. You go to this room and it's very smelly. Even this room that I'm broadcasting from, I think now it's getting better. But when I can't find it, I don't have the ability, I don't have the time to really look through where it is hidden. And so the smells and so on and so forth are something that I can feel. This is called Vachyartha. But the Lakshyartha is something. It's true, but I don't see it. It is indicated. That's why the Lakshyartha is necessary. So I'm just repeating this, something that you should have known by now, and you do know by now. But I'm just connecting the words Vachyartha and Lakshyartha with what the view, what it means. With that, let us now look at, I'm going to now go through various references in Sanskrit. By the way, I have a request from you. So today I will go through, we still have quite a bit of time, so yes. We'll go through several references on Sanskrit. We will read several sentences of Sanskrit. And I think hopefully we will connect it nicely. You'll be okay with it. But I have a request from you. If you can send me, you can even indicate in your chat window, but you may want to just send me a separate email. It's up to you. How you feel, how comfortable you are, how many of you can really follow the Sanskrit that I'm going to be referring to. As you will see, I'm going to refer to quite a bit of Sanskrit today. And by the way, just to interrupt myself, as I'm indicated to you on my WhatsApp message, I will just, obviously I cannot do 2 or 3 different ones on this edition the page number is different, on this edition page number is different. That I cannot do. But I will tell you the first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. So I hope you can follow all of that. But going back to my request to you, I'd like to know how many people are actually able to follow the references to Sanskrit. It's just for my own satisfaction. I want to know. You can even say, you can even divide it 2 or 3 different ways. You can say, I don't follow any. You don't have to say anything if you don't follow. If you do follow some, just say, yes, I can follow 20-30%. Supposing you say, I can mostly follow, please let me know. Or if you follow completely, then you can let me know. I'd like to know how many, because otherwise then I will adjust my teaching accordingly. Anyway. Okay, now let's go back to the main matter. All right, so now look at the first paragraph of the 12th verse, chapter 2, verse number 12, the first paragraph of Swami Shankaradanda's commentary. Okay, here in this original book, and for those of you that have a copy of the book or are following the digital version of that copy, it's page number 40. The other ones may be slightly different, 44 or something like that. All right, so it says, Ashocyan anvashocastvam iti. Excuse me. Ashocyan anvashocastvam iti bhishmadinam ashocastve pratipadite bhishmadi pada lakshyarthasya atmanah dehendriyadibhyah bhinnatvam nityatvam cha suchitam bhavati. Ashocyan anvashocastvam iti bhishmadinam ashochyatve pratipadite bhishmadi pada lakshyarthasya atmanah dehendriyadibhyah bhinnatvam nityam cha suchitam bhavati. So it says that by the teaching of the verse number 11, or the admonition of teaching of the 11, number 11, the previous one, which is that you are grieving unnecessarily. Your grieving, your lamentations are not appropriate. You are grieving for something which doesn't deserve to be grieving. In this pratipadite, in this teaching, bhishmadi pada lakshyarthasya atmanaha. So therefore, to indicate the lakshyartha of the word bhishma, etc., drona, bhishma, because that's what Arjuna was referring to, that I cannot fight with Bhishma, I cannot fight with Drona, they are my acharyas. If I kill them, what is going to happen to them? So now he says, this is inappropriate, because if you look at the lakshyartha of them, which is they are different from, the lakshyartha is they are different from dehendriyadibhyaha. They are different from their personalities. Dehendriyas are personalities. The person is completely different. Bhinnatvam. So it has a different nature to it. And nityatvam. They are constant. This needs to be told. He says suchitam bhavati. This has to be communicated. And so this is the reason why they should not grieve, because they are deathless. If a person is not dying, how can you say, I'm so sorry you're dying? The person says, I'm not dying. What are you talking about? So this is the thing. Then he says that Arjuna does not understand this. This is what the whole thing is all about. In our life we are told, my goodness, you are not what you think you are. You are the very Atma which is deathless. But I don't understand it yet. It is the truth, but I don't understand it for some very good reasons. I've never been told this very well, and even when I'm told this, it is not very clear to me. So therefore, similarly here it says, so look at this. Swami Shankarananda already assumes that we know what is lakshyartha, what is vachyartha, what is the atmanaha bhinnatvam, nityatvam from the dehendriyadi. All of that is we know. But Arjuna doesn't understand this yet. So that is the next one. the next second line in Sanskrit, tam imam artham. Imam artham means this meaning, that the Atma is bhinna, is different from the Dehe Indriyadi. Tam imam artham ajanantam. Arjunam alakshya Shri Bhagavan lakshyarthasya atmanaha nityatve tu ajatvam hetuhu. This is very interesting to see this sentence. Once again, tam imamartham ajanantam Arjuna. So by focusing on that aspect of Arjuna. What aspect of Arjuna? The non-understanding of the Atma being not dependent on the body, etc. That aspect of Arjuna, keeping in mind, he now resorts to the reason why Arjuna needs to understand. So he says, tam imamartham ajanantam. Arjuna, which is the nature of not knowing this fact, tam imamartham, alakshya, keeping that in view, Shri Bhagavan, Shri Krishna, lakshyarthasya atmanaha nityatve tu ajatvam hetuhu. This is important. So, in order to show that the constancy of the Atma, nityatva means the non-changing nature of the Atma, the reason for that, because everything has to be logical, the reason for the non-changingness of the Atma is ajatvam. Ajatvam hetuhu. Ajatvam means what? Ajatvam means it was never born. Never born. Therefore, it is nityam. He says it was never born. What are you talking about? This is what needs to be shown. This is the logic for why his lamentation is inappropriate. Ajatvam is the hetu. Ajatvam means the non-birthnessness, because this is our issue in life, that all of my self-estimation, all of my behavior, all of my experiences are based on the fact that I was born. If I know that I cannot be born, then this whole set of experiences become invalid. I'm talking about something which is totally different from what I take myself to be. This fact, by the way, when I started to really, this is a very big translation, a very big commentary by Swami Maheshananji. Swami Shankarananda. Very big commentary. Just look at it. On this page, This is half a page here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages of commentary. There is a lot to be said here. You almost like the complete Vedanta is right here. This is what I like Swami Shankarananda. He's not slowly talking. He's already discussing that you should be knowing all this. And he's reiterating it so that you revisit it from the eyes of Arjuna. But otherwise you should, this is what I said last week, that the final analysis is the whole thing is nothing but just a appearance. So now the question is, what are the implications of it being an appearance? So here, so what I'm saying is there is a lot to be said. So the first thing you should see, make an attention on, make a note on, is this one line, which is a logical line. Not logical line, but a line which has logic in it. There are lines that just simply state something, and some lines that are some sentences that have embedded logic in them that have become much more important. This is one of those. So I'll read it again. Tam imam artham ana ajanantam Arjunam. So this describes Arjuna's personality, that he doesn't know what this whole thing is all about. Tam alakshya, keeping that in mind, Shri Bhagavan laksharthasya atmanaha nityatve tu ajatvam hetu. So the Bhagavan says, I better explain it to him that really speaking, his nityatvam is not incidental. His non-changingness is not incidental. It was never born to begin with. It was always there. This is what we have to see. That my own Atma is not something that comes and goes. It has always been there, it will always be there, because it is not a function of time. It is the very nature of Satyam Jnanam Anantam, where there is no time involved in that. This is what we have to see. And if we don't see it, that's okay. But this is what our goal should be. Anyway, so this is the next line. Let's go on. In showing this nityatvam, which is ajatvam, so look at the Sanskrit now. Nityatvam, which is reason for reason for nityatvam is it is ajatvam, ajataha, never born. He now has to give some examples. He has to give some, this is the big thing. He's got to now divide that and show different aspects of it. The first thing he says is, look at me, the Ishvara. That's how the verse starts also. Natu eva aham jatu. There was never a time when I was not there. This is simpler to see. Why is it simpler to see? Because the ultimate person from whom the whole samsara comes about must already be there. Right? You cannot have Ishvara was also born at certain time. He was not there before. then how did his birth come about? What is birth anyway? How did it come about? And after he is born, then the world came. All those things are meaningless. So the entire phenomena of the whole Srishti, this we are talking about from the standpoint of the totality, samashti. So from the standpoint of samashti, Ishvara, God, must already be there, from which all these things came about. So that is the first topic he takes about. He says, let's look at it. Let's look at the Atma, the Nityatvam of the Atma. The first thing we should look at is, you look at me, the Ishvara, the very creator, the very substance of it. Later on, all three of them will become one, which is, what are the three ones? I, you, and all these kings. Natvam, na ime janadipaha. These are the three things. But let's start with me first. Isn't it obvious? It should be relatively obvious that unless I'm already there, the whole Srishti cannot come about. So this is what he explains next. So here, so I'm going to jump now to the second paragraph. That explains this. The second paragraph starts with, on this book number 11, number 41, and some other books may be a different page, but anyway, the second paragraph. He says, Aham tat padartha paramatma. Tat padartha means the meaning of the word tat. Tat tvamasi. So tat means that. That refers to Parameshvara, Paramatma, God, Purnamadaf. Purnamadaf means that. Purnamidam means this. So that meaning, that something that I don't directly see, but the whole samashti that I am, this is called tatpadartha. So he says, aham tatpadartha paramatma sarvagyaha. Sarvagyaha means one that knows what Srishti I have to create, I need to create, not need to create, not have to create, what I create. Let's just look at it this way. Because you cannot create something unless you have an idea of what you're going to create. A pot maker has an idea about what kind of a pot should be made before he goes about it. So the whole Srishti is jnana purvakam. Sarvagyaha, then Sarvashakti. Not only should you have the knowledge of prior to the creation, but the ability to create. Sarvashakti. Sarvatantra swatantraha parameshvaraha. Means that one who is independent of all the things that he has created. Because if he is dependent on the creation, then there is a problem. That cannot be. All the creation has to be, this is the funny creation. The funny creation is that the creation cannot be outside of himself, and it cannot be intrinsic to himself. He has to be independent of the creation. This is how it is done through the Maya Shakti. through the process of as if there is a creation. So in the water, it has the ability to create waves, but the waviness is not intrinsic to the water. What is intrinsic to the water is just the H2O. But the fluidness of the water has the ability to create certain waves. Doesn't have to, but it can. And even when it's created, it is not different from itself. Anyway, this is just a sidelight on creation. But he says that I am, if you look at the aham, Tatpadartha Paramatma Sarvagya Sarvashakti Sarvatantra Swatantraha Parameshwaraha. He says, I am never born. Jatu kadachit na asam. There was never a time, this is a double negative, there was never a time when I was not there. Because that would be illogical. The creation comes and goes, but the creator is always there. If the creator also has to come and go, we are not talking about a pot maker, I am talking about the whole Shrishti. So he says, Jatu kadachit na asam iti na. Kintu sarvada asam eva. I was always there. Why? Because, look at the next line. He says, Mat asambhave jagat shishtyadi asambhavat. He says, if I am not there, then where will the Jagat Shrishti be? The Jagat Shrishti means all the things in the world, all the sun and the planets and light, darkness, seasons, people, earth, food, everything. If the substance itself is not there, how will all these forms take place? Not possible. So he says, Mat asambhave sati saptami. This being the case, jagat shishtyadi asambhavat. Now the next thing should be appreciated, that in the Bhagavad Gita, and especially in the commentary by these Mahatmas like Swami Shankarananda and Shankaracharya Jis and so on, it always refers to Upanishad Vakyas. This is why it is called Smriti, not a Shruti. Smriti means a remembrance of the Shruti. So it's a commentary on the Shruti, Bhagavad Gita, but it's such a beautiful commentary that it itself passes on as a Shruti, as though it is a Shruti. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is sometimes called the fifth Veda. But nevertheless, at every point, the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita has to be connected to some Upanishad, some Vakya itself. So this is what is called Pramana. So one thing that I would remind you of is a statement that we had made, which is an important thing to really know. It says, Lakshana pramanabhyam vastu siddhi. Lakshana pramanabhyam vastu siddhi. Vastu siddhi means the establishment of anything the presence of anything, the proof of anything depends on two things. One is lakshana and one is pramana. Lakshana means what is it that is unique about it? What is it? So everything in the world is unique. Even when you say banana, a banana means there are millions of bananas. But when you talk about a particular banana, it has a certain uniqueness to itself. At this time, at this place, this banana. So this is what is called lakshana. So everything has a lakshana which is a unique definition. Lakshana means a definition that separates it from everything else. It may be it may be part of a family like a jati, but it has a specificity of time and place and reference. This is called lakshana. So anything, vastu siddhi means that anything which is established must have a lakshana first. How can you even talk about something until you describe it as being something very specific? Then pramana. So pramana means that there must be some way to either touch it, feel it, see it, and at least if not, then at least be able to visualize it based on something that works. This is what is called pramana. Pramajanyamiti pramanam. The one that gives a valid reason. You can say, I saw that person. So your eyes are the pramana. So until you have pramana, you do not have vastu siddhi. So you need to have both lakshana as well as pramana. Okay? So please remember this. This is lakshana pramana bhyam artha siddhi, vastu siddhi or artha siddhi. Same thing. Very important sentence. Now what happens is, when you talk about aham tat padartha paramatma sarvagya sarvashakti sarvatantra swatantra parameshwara jatu kadachit na asam iti na kintu sarvada asam mat asambhave jagat srishtyadi asambhavat. All of this, where is the pramana for this? See, this is the lakshana. This is lakshana. Lakshana means one which is Parameshwara, Sarvagya, Sarvashaktiman, etc. It is only one Parameshwara. It's different, it's unique. So now the question is, how do we know that's the case? Where is the pramana? That pramanas are given as Shruti Vakyas interspersed throughout. This is why I had already mentioned this before. You will see Swami Shankarananda sprinkle pramanas all throughout the commentary. Why? Because the only authentic pramana is Shruti Vakyas that are not man-made. They are the voice of God Himself. What more proof do you need? The only thing you can say is, who said that? Well, Who said that can only be ascertained when you have Shraddha and you look at it. It is not something which is non-verifiable belief. It is a belief which is a verifiable belief. So for the time being, you have to accept the veracity of it and rise yourself up to a point where you can see, yes, this is true. Just like is equal to saying E is equal to mc squared. Who said that? Oh, these are just crazy people. And hey, this is the truth. If you don't see it, then please learn it. So similarly, here, this is the word of God. Who says that you cannot do that? Because it works. So this is the pramana. To give those pramanas now is something you will see throughout the commentary, and here is an example. He says, Tathahi, the next sentence, Tathahi. Tathahi means, indeed, indeed, just say indeed. Janmadyasya yataha. Do you recognize it? Janmadyasya yataha. For those who took Brahma Sutra class, you should recognize it. Maybe the others don't. This is Brahma Sutra number 2. Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadyasya yataha Shastra Yonitvat Tattu Samanvayat. These are the 4 first sutras. The second sutra says Janmadyasya yataha. So Janmadyasya yataha means that from whom Janma Adi means one whose beginning, Shrishti, Sthiti, Laya, all is inside this person. That means this is the, and so Brahma Sutra is also Shruti. Janmadyasya yataha. Or if you want to look at a pure Shruti, you look at Taittiriya Upanishad, next one. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. Then the next one, I don't know which verse, which Upanishad it is from. Yato jatani bhuvanani vivishva. Sa aikshata lokan nu srija iti. Sah iman lokan asrijata. Ityadi shruti mattaha eva jagat utpatti shravyate. Ityadi shrutibhi matta eva jagat utpatti shravyate. Means all these shruti vakyas indeed confirm the fact that everything that you see were born from me. And not only born from me, mattaha, next line, mattaha eva jagataha sthitischa. Not only were they born from me, they are also, while they are there, they are in me alone. They are not separate from me. How can we say that? So because we can even see this, that really speaking, my experience of my world is in the form of consciousness alone. So, when you open your eyes in the morning, you are conscious of the clock. So you have clock consciousness. Then you have blanket consciousness. You take the blanket off. You have hand consciousness. Everything is in terms of your whole life. They all start with, so there is a form, the clock form comes up, the hand forms, the blanket form, the brushing of the teeth. Everything is, really speaking, it only is powered by your consciousness, born into the consciousness, stays within the consciousness, develops into the consciousness, and goes back into the consciousness. Really speaking, when we see things around us, we don't see things until they have an image in my eyes. What I see is the image of things in my eyes. So like a camera, the camera does not go and touch the subject, but the subject is captured as the light and shadow aspect inside the camera. And the camera snaps it. So similarly here also, it is nothing but just consciousness alone. So therefore, he says, by the way, not only the Srishti, but the Sthiti also. So now the examples given are Mattaha eva jagataha sthitischa. More proofs, more pramanas. Yena jatani jivanti. Vyakta avyaktam bharate vishvamishaha. Saha dadharaha prithvim dhyatumetam. Bhishasmat vataf pavate. Itarene tu jivanti yasmin etanu upashritau. Tasmin lokaha shritaha sarvehe ityadi shrutibihi pratipadyate. Then the last one, which is, I am also the where everything dissolves. When they disappear, where do they disappear to? In me alone. Yat prayanti abhisamvishanti yatha aksharat vividhaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra cha eva apiyanti yasmin kshetre samharati esha devaha ityadi shrutibihi mattaha eva jagat layo api shravyate. So he says that all by these Shruti Vakya, the whole Jagat has its laya, its disappearance in me alone. Then he said, he summarizes the aspect. Now he finishes the logic for saying that because things were born out of me what? I was already there from which they were born. They were not there, but I was already there. If I was not there, they could not even possibly be born. You see, that's the point. And not only there, when they disappear in me alone. So all the ornaments, for example, they are born out of the metal, like gold. They stay in the metal and they disappear. When do they disappear? Not anywhere else. Go back into the metal itself. So therefore, then he summarizes, and then perhaps I think we'll have to stop at that after this summary. Okay, so this is a long sentence. It says, Yato mad ekakartrakatvam jagat shrishtyadi kriyayantata jagat utpatti sthiti layadishu agatsatsu satsu tat adhishthanatritaya sada aham asam eva iti nirukta shruti balat trishu apikaleshu mat bhavaha mat sat bhavaha nischetavyaha iti arthaha. So he says, I'll just translate that for you. He says, therefore, it should be ascertained, nischetavyaha. It should be ascertained. You should be able to see this. It is not that difficult to see. You should be able to grasp this fact. What fact? That because everything comes out of me, stays in me, and are dissolved in me, therefore I was never born. Ajatvam is the hetu, as we saw earlier. With respect to me, the other things we will see later. But with respect to me, you should see that I am Nitya. There was never a time when I was not there. He says, this should be now clear to you. So, this is now done. So next sentence, next portion that we will study next time is Arjuna saying, okay, I understand you as being not born. I get it. Now you've explained it to me. I see the logic of it and I get it. But I am different from you. You are a Parameshwara. But I am just one jiva which was very clearly born. I am different. What about me? So that section we will take up in the next class. So, I deliberately slowed down a little bit so that I have more time to explain. So I would like to get some feedback from you, whether you think that you are following the Sanskrit as I mentioned before, and to what degree you are able to see it. Is it I don't need any feedback whether it is too detailed or not. That's not what I'm looking for. On the other hand, I'm looking for any feedback to say, are you following it? Is the pace right? So if you could just let me know, that would help me to adjust how much Sanskrit I will take, how much explanation I would take, all of that we will do. Okay, so with that, I close this class with a prayer. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So good to see all of you. So many of you. Wonderful. And saw the input back from Jaya and from Chawla. So that you are following that. And Jaya said 2.5 on a scale of 0 to 5. And Chawla says you are explaining enough to know the meaning. Good. So with that being the case, I think what I will do is, if it is consistent, on the other hand, if some of you write to me later on that this is too much, then I can readjust it to a certain degree. But otherwise, what I will do is to take selective, as I did today itself. I probably read maybe 25% of the Sanskritam, but whenever I see there is a logical importance, then I will study that sentence and then spend some time explaining it, and then certain aspects of which is too subtle and obtuse or whatever, then I will ignore it and go on to the next one. So let us see. It's a process of discovery, and we will see how do we go. But in any case, I'm very happy to see so many of you. Kirsten, back. I have not seen you recently, but wonderful. Ganeshan, Sam, Akshay and Shobana, welcome. So nice to see all of you. So I guess the other thing that we need to decide is how long the class should go on. So I did it for 1 hour, which is along with the half hour for the Nitidhasanam, it's an hour and a half. And it's short, not enough time. So maybe I'll spend another 5 or 10 minutes, so up to maybe 9:40 or so, before calling it quits for a class. But we'll see how that goes. Okay, if there's no other questions, then okay, Sam, I understand. Good. If you understand the explanations, then that's all that matters. Good, excellent. Okay, very good. We'll see you next week. Hari Om.